Combining the best of daily fantasy and survivor pools, Stat Hero is the next chapter in fantasy sports. No more competing with the sharks or experts ever, because your only competition is Stat Hero itself. The face of DFS has changed. Finally, a game designed for the rest of us.
Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. Week 11 fantasy football is upon us, so let's take an advanced look at the matchups this week at the wide receiver position, wide receiver cornerback matchups for you here. And we have 2 upgrades, 2 downgrades for Week 11. Let's start with those upgrades, and as if he really needs it, Michael Thomas gets another upgrade this week. This guy heading into this week needs just 14 catches to top 100 for the season. 100 catches potentially in Week 11 for this guy. That's unbelievable. The production has been off the charts, and he gets a beautiful matchup to boot. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary has been very fantasy friendly so far this year. And hey, he's going to see his share of Sean Murphy bunting in coverage. Murphy bunting has allowed 64% of his targets to be caught this season, giving up 3 receiving scores as well. Michael Thomas should have his way. You're starting him no matter what, but obviously you got to love the high floor and high ceiling in this matchup for Michael Thomas. You may not be necessarily certain if you're starting Marquise Brown, though, and I do think this is a week to roll with the rookie wide receiver. Of course, he has major upside, 4 touchdowns on the season, and Lamar Jackson is certainly clicking in the passing game right now. But it's more than just that. It's the matchup as well. When you look at the Houston Texans secondary, well, hey, they traded for Garyon Conley a few weeks ago, and now he's there on the outside along with Jonathan Joseph, the veteran. But this duo is certainly not one of the league's better. In fact, it's arguably one of the league's worst in terms of allowing touchdowns. They have combined for 7 receiving touchdowns in their coverage. With the upside that we know is present in that passing game, Marquise Brown gets a nice upgrade. Find a way to start him this week. All right, now let's take a look at these downgrades for you this week. And, well, Alshon Jeffrey, not only is he banged up with an ankle injury, but he's facing the Patriots secondary. We pretty much know every single week we see the Patriots on the schedule for our receivers. We know that's not a good thing. If Alshon is good to go, he will see shadow coverage very likely from Stephon Gilmore. And what does that mean? Well, it means a whole lot of nothing for Alshon Jeffrey, essentially from a statistical standpoint, because, hey, Stephon Gilmore's given up 48% catch rate so far this season, 0 touchdowns allowed. Could be a very quiet day for Alshon Jeffrey. Most weeks we're looking at him as essentially a wide receiver too, especially with Deshaun Jackson on injured reserve. But this is one of those weeks where maybe you want to look elsewhere, not start Alshon Jeffrey in season-long leagues. Finally, one of the downgrades, and after last week, you may want to find a reason to start this guy, but Christian Kirk, of course, he was a monster last week. 3 receiving scores, but yes, that was a matchup where he should perform well. We didn't think he was going to perform that well, but he was one of our upgrades last week. Well, this week is a much different matchup. I talk about the Patriots secondary being intimidating, and a lot of people out there might think they're the best secondary in the league, but by PFF grades, well, the San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks are actually a little bit better than the Patriots. I mean, hey, the Patriots are still very good, so don't get me wrong there. But the 49ers have been awesome this year. Richard Sherman, Kwan Williams, Emmanuel Mosley, these guys are all top 20 cornerbacks in PFF grades, and they have been holding opposing wideouts in check. In fact, wide receivers scoring the 4th fewest fantasy points per game against San Francisco. This is a rough matchup. So, the moral of the story, are we benching Christian Kirk? I don't think necessarily, but we have to downgrade him to wide receiver 3 territory. He's about 30 in my rankings right now. So you downgrade him. On top of that, don't just simply expect, because a guy put up numbers last week, he's going to now continue to put up numbers. Remember, it does come down to the matchup. So if Christian Kirk has a quiet day, don't be all upset about it. We thought it was coming, right? Better days will be ahead for Christian Kirk. He's certainly trending in the right direction. But this week is certainly a tough one for him. You want all this wide receiver cornerback matchup information? We have you covered. We have it all for you at PFF.com. The wide receiver cornerback matchup chart is where I do all my research for this, and all these videos throughout the course of the season. You can get access to that. You can get access to fantasy rankings and projections and stats galore. Like I said, you can get all that over at PFF.com.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. a little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.